The RV lifestyle has seen a certain trend grow significantly over the last couple of years, and it continues to grow at a rapid pace year over year, month over month, and it's not going away anytime soon. And the biggest reason why is because traditional RV camping, like RV resorts, has become chaotic, overcrowded. I mean, there's people that have complained that places have turned into dumps. I mean, it's just nuts and lunacy, okay? And this trend is the overland and off the grid camping communities. We used to call it dry camping, okay? Now, amongst that community, there is a growing, excellent, wonderful debate of how to do it. And one of those debates is, do I do a slide in truck camper, or do I do an off the grid, all wheel drive, or 4x4 motorhome? So, we're going to talk about that today in this episode because I think it's something that's really going to be significant in 2026 and beyond. Welcome to HBRV Lifestyle, the podcast. I'm the host, John Livingston, aka the Honey Badger, here to give it to you straight and transparent about the RV business, as well as some other things. Now, I'll be a little chaotic in the way I do things, always have been, but where I'm going to start is where both sides kind of look at things, okay? So, either way, you're spending a pretty decent dollar amount, pretty big chunk of money, whether you do the 4x4 or all-wheel drive motorhome, like a Class B, like a van conversion, or whether you do the slide-in truck camper, because generally you need a bigger truck to be able to do it, especially if you want a bathroom inside the truck camper. Okay. Now, there are exceptions to kind of each rule that I'm going to talk about, but this is basically the debate. And one of the biggest debates that, especially when I get guys that want to look at truck campers, is in their mind, when they want to look at a truck camper, they generally are like, the truck is more compact. I can also tow a boat. I can tow a small trailer with my dirt bikes or my quads. I can tow maybe an enclosed trailer with my hunting gear. There's a little more in their mind flexibility because the truck, along with the RV on top, gives a little more day-to-day use because you could take the truck camper off the truck. While the motorhome, especially a van motorhome or Super C, is realistically not going to be used as something on a day-to-day operation, like if you're going to load furniture, you're going to work, maybe you use your Chevy Silverado, your Ram 3500, your Ford F-350, maybe use that as a work vehicle. Or maybe it's your daily driver to your construction sites, or maybe you're a plumber or an electrician, a blue collar worker, that your tools go in the back of that truck. So it's an interesting to watch this dynamic play out because the people on the motorhome side are like, well, I don't have to deal with taking something on and off the truck. I can just hop in the motorhome, start the engine, go fill up my water tank, and I'm gold. I don't need to be worrying about propane because I got a bigger propane tank. I don't need to worry about the generator running out of propane or running out of gasoline because it all feeds off either the diesel tank or the gasoline tank, depending on what motorhome you have. So it's just interesting to watch the dynamic. Now, how I usually say things and how I present it to everybody is you're going to go by your personal preference. Okay. The benefit to going with a slide-in truck camper over a motorhome, like a van conversion that's all-wheel drive, is when you want to do something more traditional, like maybe going to your local lake with your fishing boat, you don't have to take two vehicles. You can simply load the truck camper in the bed of the truck, hitch up the boat, and take off. A lot of your vans are not going to have the capacity to tow a decent sized fishing boat. Now, if you're going to a Super C, different animal. Super Cs tow 15, 20,000 pounds. But I'm talking about the smaller, compact, overland, off the grid experience. The other thing is if something goes wrong with the RV in the motorhome, let's say there's an electrical issue in the motorhome, the motorhome is stuck where you're at. Well, if there's an electrical issue or a problem with the truck camper, you can manually take it off your truck or just keep it on your truck and take off and get out of Dodge. The spacing and the differences between the two are so nitpicky that it's understandable why it takes people a while to make a decision. Because even if you go with something that's pre-owned, to get something decent and high quality pre-owned on either side, you're spending a combined $150,000+, especially if you want all-wheel drive, 4x4. Now, what a lot of people ask me is, well, what about the square footage point of view? If you got the big enough truck that has the proper payload capacity, you can get an Arctic Fox, a Northern Light, a Host camper, an Eagle Cap that has multiple slide outs, multiple pop outs that give you more room, more space, and more comfort. While a Class B motorhome, an all-wheel drive type of van, is very limited. That's a great point to have. But generally, how I would look at it is I don't look at it that way. Some people do, but I don't look at it that way because if you're going to go off the grid, you're going to go overland experience, you want to get away from the traditional RV camping, the traditional campground, the traditional resort, you're going to spend the majority of your time outside of the camper, no matter what that camper is, which is whether it's a camper van or a slide-in truck camper. Fact of life. It's versatility that I think that a lot of the debate is about. So, a truck camper to me gives you more versatility than a camper, an all-wheel drive camper van, or even a Super C. Now, there's nothing wrong with the Super C, but I just think the versatility-wise of what the overall overland experience is supposed to be about, with the proper equipment and the proper setup, a truck camper will give you more options than a Mercedes all-wheel drive coach or an International or Ford 4x4 F550 Super C. That's just where kind of the place I'm at with it. The versatility has to deal with more of what can you bring with you. When you go to a Super C, thing that has decent storage, inverter, generator, diesel, everything else you're looking for, you're going 35 feet. Okay. 35 feet is tough to get in some of these mountain passes, these mountain roads, and especially if you're towing a Jeep, a little trailer with a bunch of your stuff in it, a little harder to do. The Class B motorhome, the van motorhome, doesn't have the capacity to tow something without straining the transmission, the drivetrain. Because the payload of that van is almost superseded by all the stuff you put in the RV. Whether you build out your own custom van or whether you buy one that was already built by an RV manufacturer. While a truck camper, you get a Eagle Cap 1165, which I don't sell, but beautiful camper. And you got a Ford F450 dually. You have more flexibility. to get in those mountain roads, to get in those difficult to get to patches of the mountains. And if you have a smaller truck, like a Toyota Tacoma, a Toyota Tundra, an F-150, there are options without bathrooms that allow you to do the same thing. So the overland community has the ability to do either way. But to me, from where I sit and how I look at things, I personally believe the slide-in truck camper works best. Now, the cons when it comes to the truck camper is that most truck camper owners are overweight. And a lot of guys don't want to spend the money to properly support that overweight truck. You know, it's not something that is brought to mind that, yes, there's no way to increase your payload of a truck, but there are ways to give that truck enough support where that extra weight isn't destroying the drivetrain and the suspension. And there's a lot of guys that don't quite understand that. There's a lot of guys in these Reddit and Quora communities that are purists or call themselves purists. I always say, hey, tell me you can't afford a truck camper without telling me you can't afford a truck camper. And I just go into these Reddit and Quora things about trucks and truck campers where you complaining that you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, there you go. You can't afford to do a truck camper. Totally get it. Okay. I get it. It's just like, tell me you can't afford a Class B motorhome that's all-wheel drive, that's Mercedes, without telling me. Oh, they're so overpriced. Okay, there you go. Just tell me you can't afford it. It's not that big of a deal. Everybody's got their own budget and their own way of doing things. Just we like to troll and complain on the internet because it's anonymous and free. And we feel like we're contributing something, even though we're contributing something negative instead of encouragement and education. But hey, that's for another day, another episode. Now, the other con behind the truck and the slide-in truck camper is you're limited on the options of things you can put on it. You're limited in the fact that if you go with a Super C motorhome, you're going to have the more access to using day-to-day appliances, and you have a more willingness of being able to put bigger battery setups, bigger solar systems. And even though they're expensive, you have the ability to run a lot of electric devices outside of your air conditioner off the batteries, like your coffee maker, maybe your little electric fryer, your air fryer. You have the ability to maybe plug in a hair dryer or electric shaver, or a host of things. While in the truck camper, you're going to be more limited to what you can actually do with appliance-wise. So I think that's why I say it's always a personal decision that's going to boil down to, do you want to go off the grid in a mansion with all the creature comforts of home, or do you just want a place to lay your head and go explore and hike most of the time? That's the personal decision you have to kind of make. And there's nothing wrong with either decision, because everybody relaxes and everybody does things differently. You know, there are people that could only go to resorts. There's people that can only go to the river or the beach. They don't want to deal with the snow. They don't want to deal with the confines of nature and not be able to get to a Starbucks in 5 minutes. I mean, there's people like that. And there's nothing wrong with it. We all have to decompress, and we all RV and camp differently. And that's why there's so many options and abilities, and that's why there's so many ways to enjoy the RV lifestyle. That's all we have for today. So until next time, hey, remember that RV always stands for toolkit and sense of humor.